Hi, this is Brett Knowles from Viva Goals and PM Squared Consulting. This quick video is going to unbox the Viva Goals Gauge. And the reason I'm doing this is I've been in this space for 35 years, and I've never seen such an elegant representation of performance data as they've developed in Viva Goals. So let me walk you through this. First, I'm going to show you an iScreen. I apologize, but this is a Viva Goals dashboard just listing off all my KRs. And I'm doing this because we're going to drill into one of these, plain availability. And in particular, we're going to talk about the gauge to begin with, then we'll come back to the rest of the screen. So within the gauge, I'm just going to unbox it. So there's a bunch of elements here that help tell the performance story. To begin with, we've got the gauge background itself, and the body just represents what we're going to be graphing in. And then we've got the performance range that you've input. So I'm looking at a key result. And in this case, when I created the key result in Viva Goals, I said that we're going to increase from 85 to 100. So it merely takes this line from where you created the key result, and it tucks that up underneath the gauge. Now, you don't see it, but the gauge is proportioned to what this gap looks like here, the span that we're looking at, plus whatever the actual performance is. Now, it doesn't show you the actual grid that it's on. So it's, good Toffler, keep it simple representation. Next element is this bar. This bar represents where Viva Goals calculates that you should be based on today's date and the span of this particular key result. Now, this particular key result is about to come to an end. So it thinks that we should be about this far along the progression. Next data element is the actual performance data. Now, this you might be keying in manually, or it might just be automatically brought in from Power BI, Jira, whatever your source system is. And so it tucks that into the right of the dial. So you can see already we've got a bunch of information here, what the range should be, where we expect to be, what our actual performance is. So this bar chart merely represents where we are visually. So that's that 99% as graphed against that body of the chart. And according to what we've said, it's on track. So that in itself is a whole bunch of information. This is incredibly informative if that's all you had. But the thing is, there's more to it than just that. So let's go back to that initial view that we looked at. Now, in this particular view, I've shown what the weekly performance is. Now, these time buckets are based on this time span. So if it's a quarterly objective, these become weekly. If this is an annual, these are the last 4 months. What we see here is the same model. I've got the gauge body. I have a visual representation of the data, and I have the actual number. So the number gets put on top of the gauge, and that way I very quickly can see what the performance has been. Now, just to help you set this up, this is not the default view. What I did is in Explorer, I clicked on Change View. I clicked on Compare to, and then I chose week to week. And so that becomes what we're seeing here. So again, now I got even more data to look at. And this is pretty handy. You can see that we're sort of off target. We got on target a bit, we fell off, and then we're back on target. Now, the other interesting bit of data is here. This, in particular, this yellow icon. So what this looks like is this yellow icon indicates that the performance on the gauge is different than what Viva Goals would have calculated it to be. So in this particular case, Viva Goals would have calculated this objective to be at risk. Yet I came in as the owner and changed it to be on track. Now, that's fair game because I know stuff that Viva Goals doesn't know. Maybe a big contract's about to come through, or bottleneck's been solved, or whatever it might be. And I want the organization to know that we're no longer at risk. As far as I'm concerned, we're on track, we can hit our numbers, take a chill pill. And that's really important data because otherwise you're chasing all these false reds. And our experience is between 30 and 55% of objectives give you false reds because by nature of the OKR system, it has incomplete knowledge. That's why we need you as an expert to overlay. Now, when we take a look at it, you can see that now there's more information. I can see that we're on track, but I also know the owner's chosen to override it, and that's an important piece of data. So if I was to change it back to what the system expected, at risk, now that icon's gone. So as I begin looking at the data, it allows me to better interpret what's going on. Now, the yellow icon, there's one other one, which is red. The red pops up if there's more than 2 levels of difference between what the system's expecting and what I've overridden it in. In other words, if it thinks it's red and I put it as green, this icon turns to red. So now let's go back to that eye chart I started with. It makes a whole bunch more sense now, right? As I quickly look at this, I can see that we've chosen to make this green. That's okay. I understand that's overriding the system. In other cases, I've chosen to make it green, but the system thinks it should be red. And so now we end up with a whole bunch more information that you can quickly assimilate as you take a look at these key results. Now, it's important to note, there are no rules about OKRs. It's not like accounting where I've got GAAP or regulatory compliance. You get to make up your own rules. Don't be misled by any of the books. It's all up to you. And we can help you figure out what's the best way to represent each objective, each key result, what are the appropriate targets, how to best represent it, in particular, based on this huge flexibility that Viva Goals gets us through the gauge. Give us a ring if you want some help. Thanks.